Jasmine. I'm here today at an exhibition called Gatekeepers to Heaven at the RAM Museum in Exeter, and I'm here to chat to Tom, the curator. Can't wait. So Tom, what's this that we have here then?
This is the oldest manuscript in the show. So this is 850.
850?
Incredible. Yeah, so this was made in France, and then 200 years later it was brought to Exeter as one of the first books that came as part of the cathedral library. It's so well preserved, isn't it?
Is it actual gold? What is it?
It's actual gold.
Oh my gosh.
So they would use really, really thin gold leaf. The artist who was making it would have to carefully place it on and then scrape off what wasn't needed. And all the other colours would have been expensive as well. They're all made out of metals or really particular pigments to get that really bright colour, and it's lasted over 1,000 years. Yeah.
Okay, so there was one down here as well that I thought was really interesting. It looks grubby and not as exciting as the one down there, right? So
it's nowhere near, is it?
Yeah.
There's no colour. But the reason why it's here is to say that these books, yeah, they were serious, but they weren't kind of put on a shelf and never kind of looked at. They were really used.
Yes.
And every bit of it was used.
Yeah, looks like someone spilt their tea on it a little bit, haven't they? That's what it looks
it's
like.
Very old. This is a poetry book, a religious poetry book in Latin.
And what was the date of that, Tom? So
that is, probably came in at 1050. Again, the first Bishop Leofrich, had this Latin poetry book. And then, on a blank spare page at the start, someone has written in a charm for nosebleeds, or how to stop bleeding.
And what language is it in then, Tom?
It's in a mixture of kind of Old English and Old Irish. And we're still translating, we don't really know what it says. All we know is it said, if you're a man or a horse, if you've got a problem to staunch bleeding, this is what you need.
Okay.
And someone in the cathedral was so desperate to write down this, it needed to be preserved. And you know, how do you preserve this thing? You know, maybe you can just, you know, by that sort of saying it and saying it and saying it and telling other people you preserve it. And maybe that's how it came to Exeter, by that sort of someone telling somebody. And because of the Irish connection, maybe it was one of these travelling Irish medical scholars told the Bishop of Exeter, thought, great.
We'll record it down. If you could just quickly peer in. That is probably ink, but it does look a little bit like blood. You don't think he was having a nosebleed when he wrote it in, do you?
Well, that could be it. You know, if you've got a nosebleed or bleeding and you say, I must find that thing, and then you're dripping all over it.
Well, maybe it was literally a recording of a moment. If I stand all the way down here, that's what I see.
You just,
because it's so bright.
This is just after 1050.
So that's over 1,000 years, is it?
Nearly 1,000 years old. We also know the name of the person who did do it.
Really?
Hugo. And he was so proud of his work that he actually depicted himself right at the end, and he's written his name. Hugo Pictor, Hugo the painter.
Painter, yeah, that's interesting. So Pictor Latin for painter. Artist as well.
Yeah.
So he really saw himself as the artist of this.
This is the first selfie in British art. There it is.
Oh my God.
In that
Okay,
book.
That's amazing. We need to check out Hugo later on. Now I'm getting more excited as we go along, really.
This is what intrigues me, puzzles me, because these books are just full of beasts. Some of them like a lion, but then some of them are like a hare or a rabbit, but then you've got intertwined dragons, and then you've got classical beasts.
It's like this big kind of mash-up, mix-up of what is real and what is imaginary. And I love that about these. If you're just looking at this as a member of the public, you're not likely to be able to read it.
So if you're getting all that information from the pictures, most people would not be able to read or even understand the Latin, even if it was spoken to
Good point,
them.
exactly.
So these are all mostly in Latin.
The dragon, which traditionally would symbolise something bad in Christian thinking. And then you have the lion, which is obviously a Christian symbol of sort of strength and power.
I think that's the idea behind it anyway, is just to enforce the fact that there's strong things that will protect you, but all the time, that reminder that twisting its way round the pages are things that will trip you up, will give you a nip on the toe or the nose or whatever if you go off the straight and narrow.
Regular folk aren't seeing these images in their daily life. You know, what they're doing is going to places like a church where those images are around them in stained glass, in sculptures, or wherever they might be, and of course in text here.
You would absorb all this drama, wouldn't you?
Well, of course you would. How could you not?
Yeah.
And especially with the beautiful colours, with the little hairs running around the edge.
I mean, this was the one I had most trouble choosing a particular page, because every page has beautiful images on
Yeah, it's
of
beautiful.
a lot of beasts, a lot of mythical beasts, and I chose the one that's not mythical, just because they're drawn is that one ear overlaps with the ear of another. And so you've got these 4 hairs, you kind of imagine them running around a field.
Yeah.
And they almost kind of blur into one, and that's what's happening here. And the tin miners who lived on Dartmoor, worked on Dartmoor, the tinners, they adopted that as their symbol. Probably because they actually saw these hares chasing around. The churches that they funded, around Devon, quite often have a carving of this. And I thought, I'm going to pick up on that. And again, there's the golds in there as well. So just as much care was taken with this image as within the start of the Mass. All those hundreds of years earlier. They were commissioned by the bishops, who were, we call them the gatekeepers to heaven. They were important people, but what they were doing was, making sure that everybody got to heaven, or to protect them from going down to hell. And these are public books in a way,
How do you choose what you're going to show? Because if I was just visiting today and you weren't there, I wouldn't know that, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in there.
I know.
Because I bet you there's even more than this exhibition can show you.
There is so much.
Yeah.
So all these are held in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. They've been incredibly helpful during the time we're putting the exhibition together. So I've talked to their curator, Martin Kaufman. But luckily, most of these things have been digitised. It's actually much easier than it's ever been to consult these,
I mean, I just didn't know that there'll be such a depth. There's so many stories to tell within the books.